Hello, I'm Esther Gidhu-Ewart. It's Thursday, April 21st. This is Africa 54.
Thousands displaced from an insurgent-driven conflict in Africa's Sahel region spill into West Africa's coastal states. Amid Sudan's economic crisis, volunteers are delivering thousands of Iftar meals to vulnerable people. And could an ancient grain from the Horn of Africa become the new American superfood?
We begin in West Africa, where the Islamic State terrorist group is claiming responsibility for an explosion that it says killed or injured 30 people at a market where alcohol was sold in Taraba State of Nigeria. This marks an expansion of the area where the extremist group usually operates in the country. Northeast Nigeria, especially the states of Borno and Yobe, have been in the grip of Islamist insurgencies for over a decade. But Taraba, located at the eastern end of Nigeria's Middle Belt Central region, has not previously been attacked. The explosion occurred Tuesday in Iware. Local police initially said 3 people were killed and 19 injured. Police could not immediately be reached Thursday to comment on the Islamic State claim or casualty count. The United Nations says it's extremely concerned that Mali is preventing its investigators from visiting a town where local troops and suspected Russian fighters allegedly killed hundreds of civilians. A Human Rights Watch report reveals that at least 300 men are believed to have been executed during a late March raid in Mura, a town of about 10,000 inhabitants infiltrated by Islamist militants. Survivors allege white mercenaries suspected to be Russians participated in the massacre that sparked international uproar and prompted the UN to open an investigation. Mali is denying the accusations. Former Botswana President Ian Khama is facing 13 criminal charges, including illegally possessing 5 firearms. Khama, who governed one of Africa's most stable democracies for 10 years until 2018, was summoned to appear before a court Thursday in Gaborone. The son of the country's founding leader has been living in self-imposed exile in neighboring South Africa since November. Khama, 69, developed a rift with his hand-picked successor, Mokgweetsi Masisi, whom he has accused of authoritarianism. The illegal weapons charge carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in jail. Mkondisi Dube has more from Gaborone, Botswana.
Former Botswana President Ian Khama was expected to appear before this court on Thursday morning, facing charges of illegal possession of firearms. However, the former president did not turn up, as he's living in South Africa, where he fled to last year, October, saying his life was in danger. Khama is charged alongside 4 others, who include former intelligence boss Isaac Hosi, suspended police commissioner Gabezi Makobe. The other 4 were in court today. However, proceedings have been postponed to June 6, as the state has actually amended the charge sheet, meaning that the former president and the 4 others are now going to face more charges. Khama, however, contends that these charges are trumped up and accuses his successor, current President Mokgweetsi Masisi, of targeting him after a fallout when there was a transfer of power in 2018. He has previously said that he keeps these firearms in his official residence for private and security, private and official security, and it has been collected over the past 3 decades. For VOA, this is Mkondisi Dube in Gaborone, Botswana.
A Rwandan court has sentenced a Chinese national to 20 years in jail for torturing local mine workers. A video showing him whipping a man tied to a post went viral on social media. Shajun San, the manager of a mine in the west of the country, was convicted along with an accomplice following his arrest in September last year. The judge says it was clear that San committed a grave crime by torturing the victims and issued corporal punishment with malicious intent. Shajun was also in court for the verdict, acknowledged assaulting two workers, saying he had beaten them because he was frustrated and fed up with their constant theft of minerals. South Africa's military has so far deployed 400 of the 10,000 troops earmarked for emergency relief and reconstruction operations in flood-stricken areas, according to a senior army officer. Torrential rains last week triggered record floods and mudslides tearing through eastern coastal parts of the country, killing more than 440 people and ripping apart roads, water, pipes, and thousands of homes. Joint civilian and military search teams are still recovering corpses from the debris more than a week after the disaster struck. The army is bringing in doctors, electricians, and specialist workers. Several areas are still inaccessible, hampering the delivery of aid after bridges and roads cracked under the weight of the worst floods to hit the country in living memory. The insurgent-driven conflict in Africa's Sahel region has displaced millions of people, and for the first time, thousands are spilling into West Africa's coastal states. Henry Wilkins reports.
On this road in Ivory Coast, terror groups linked to Al-Qaeda have carried out attacks and kidnappings in recent months. It's located between Fakessi-Dougou and Tugbo, just a few hundred meters away from the border with Burkina Faso, where that country's government has been fighting these groups for 6 years. Refugees have been fleeing into Ivory Coast, and the government is concerned the conflict is spilling over the border from Burkina Faso. I'm here in the village of Moro on the border with Burkina Faso. The village chief here says that the conflict is happening just 10 kilometers away. He's been welcoming refugees from Burkina Faso into his village and says that there are more of them coming all the time. The UN's refugee agency says 7,000 refugees have already left Burkina Faso for Ivory Coast. Abdoulaye Ouattara is one of them.
There was a conflict, and we were afraid. We haven't harvested yet either. We ran away to come here because when you are afraid of something stronger than you have to run away.
Many people in the Western Sahel are unable to farm because the threat of terror attacks makes it too dangerous. This has led to a food security crisis with more than 3.5 million in need of humanitarian assistance, according to the UN. Moro's chief says the village has struggled to help the refugees.
Yes, it was difficult the day they started arriving. It was the rainy season. There was nothing to eat. Some of them arrived all wet. We managed until the government came to help us.
He says Ivorian forces have been carrying out more frequent patrols. Villagers feel safe for now, but are worried about how close the conflict is getting. Meanwhile, the UN's World Food Programme says Russia's war on Ukraine is pushing up prices of grain imported into the region, making an unprecedented food security crisis even worse.
Ukraine and Russia are two major producers or exporters of wheat flour, and 30% of the wheat flour consumed in this region is coming from Ukraine or Russia.
He added that a lot of cooking oil, a regional staple, comes from Russia, along with most of the region's fertilizers. He warned this and the economic fallout from COVID could lead to more instability.
In 2008, when the entire world faced the major high food prices, it led to substantial hunger riots in West Africa, in countries like Côte d'Ivoire, Senegal, here where we are sitting, Guinea, almost everywhere in the northern part of Africa.
Ouattara says support from the UN and the government is enough for now, But as violence gets closer and food prices go up, that may not last. Henry Wilkins for VOA News, Moro, Ivory Coast.
The Africa FinTech Summit is underway here in Washington with tech startups, financial service providers and investors are discussing ways to grow and advance the continent economically and digitally. The annual summit brings together corporations, African tech entrepreneurs and other interested parties for conversations geared to wealth creation for the continent. Now for more on the FinTech Summit, Hassouna Baishu, VOA's multimedia digital reporter, joins me live via Skype from here in Washington. Hassouna, hello there. Let's start off with a basic question, Hassouna. What is FinTech?
Well, FinTech is a financial technology. We here this summit to discuss the financial technology industry in African countries. The summit actually aiming to gather or bring together entrepreneurs, financial business leaders, as well as stakeholders and other people that are interested in financial technology in the country. The aim of this event is to basically to accelerate and facilitate the adoption of financial technology. When we say financial technology, yes, we're talking basically about online payments, digital banking, cryptocurrency, blockchain, and the list actually goes on and on. And what I want to say here is that, just to give you a point of reference, 50% of the financial transition or transactions in Africa occur outside the formal channel, meaning that there is a ripe environment for startups and other national investors to come into the country and create a different financial system that will make the life of the African probably easier when it comes to financial matters. I would like also to mention that the event was actually initiated today, summit, by Dennis Florentine, who is the director for Africa at the White House Security Council. Another thing that was on the list, on the agenda today, the challenges of the African financial technology in Africa. One of the main challenges, for example, is the political challenge. Hello?
Hey, hello, Hassouna. I can hear you. And I was just going to ask you to wrap up by telling me what challenges Africans are facing in terms of getting up to speed with the digital world today. Very briefly.
Well, right. One of the main challenges is the political challenge. We all know that there has sort of instability in some African nations, Guinea, Burkina Faso, South Sudan. So instability usually creates an environment that is too risky for international investors to get into such a new technology. Another challenge here is the regulation. Now, we all know that when there is new technology, regulation is probably one of the main obstacles for any society to adopt this new technology. Now, what I also would like to stress here is that there is a change. There's a paradigm change. It is extremely difficult for the African continent to probably accept this new paradigm, but definitely go in there, get in there.
All right.
And
all right,
we have seen a lot of
we're going to have to wrap it up there so we can move on, but thank you very much. VOA's Hassouna Baishu live via Skype from here in Washington. Now, many Sudanese social media users are reacting angrily to a video that emerged of deposed President Omar al-Bashir walking around in a hospital ward where he was moved on the grounds that he was too ill for prison. Some, however, voiced support for the former leader. Bashir is being held in Koba prison while on trial on charges of leading the 1989 army takeover that brought him to power, as well as on corruption and human rights charges. Reuters could not independently confirm the authenticity of the video, which emerged this week and whose origin is unclear. The video has not been disputed by Bashir's lawyers. Amid Sudan's economic crisis, volunteers are delivering thousands of meals to vulnerable people. Clara Frank has more.
In Sudan's capital, Khartoum, cooks are whipping up a batch of the popular dish asida. Volunteers say their work is more necessary than ever, as Sudan has spiraled further into economic crisis. One initiative is the Ramadan Iftar project that provides meals to vulnerable people who have largely come from outside the capital. Dureya Abdallah is one of the volunteers.
After the Sudanese revolution, we realized that volunteering is much needed in Sudan. I come here after 2 p.m. and help with preparing iftar meals for hospitals and dormitories where people from other regions stay.
The Ramadan Iftar project delivers around 1,200 meals a day. Nurse Alri Mohammed has just taken a delivery. He says everyone is suffering in Sudan's economic conditions, and the iftar meals really help. Sudan's military officials staged a coup last year, plunging the country deeper into political and economic turmoil. The military says the coup was a necessary corrective measure. Since then, protests have taken place despite climbing temperatures, Ramadan fasts, and a security crackdown that has claimed the lives of 94 people and injured thousands. Clara Frank, VOA News.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Africa's 54's new Facebook page is facebook.com/VOA Africa. Friday's entertainment report from Heather Maxwell features a vintage performance by an Afrofusion band from Zimbabwe, but still to come. A Ugandan filmmaker is selected to create a short film for Disney. We'll be right back.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Lino Khmudu, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa says he spoke by phone to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Thursday and called for a negotiated end to the conflict with Russia. Ramaphosa wrote on Twitter, quote, "We agree on the need for a negotiated end to the conflict, which has impacted Ukraine's place in global supply chains, including its position as a major exporter of food to our continent." Ramaphosa so far has resisted calls to condemn Russia for its invasion of Ukraine, and last month he blamed NATO for not heeding warnings about its eastward expansion, according to Reuters. Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered Russian forces on Thursday not to storm a steel plant in the Ukrainian city of Mariupol, where the last remaining Ukrainian forces are holed up. But Putin's forces have formed a blockade around the steel facility. The Russian defense minister says there are 2,000 Ukrainian troops at the Azovstal plant, but the rest of the Mariupol has been, quote, liberated. The Azovstal plant remains the last Ukrainian stronghold for resistance in Mariupol, as the Russian military and Donetsk militia forces continued to seek full control of the city through heavy bombardment and dropping leaflets to Ukrainian troops in the facility, telling them to surrender. Russian forces continue to pound the steel facility with artillery from howitzers that is designed to suppress and destroy enemy manpower. More than 100,000 Ukrainians are believed to be trapped in Mariupol. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden on Thursday announced another round of military security assistance for Ukraine that is expected to total about $800 million. The new aid includes more artillery and tens of thousands of more artillery rounds. A Kenyan-born Bahrain athlete, Damaris Muthee Mutua, is dead, and police say her Ethiopian boyfriend, Eskinder Hailemariam Folie, is a suspect in her killing. Kenyan Police Commander Tom Makori says the suspect called a friend and informed him that he had killed his girlfriend and that the body was in the house. Police found Mutua's body decomposing in her house. Mutua, 28, was a long-distance runner. The initial investigation indicates that she may have been killed several days ago. Police are now looking for the boyfriend, who is suspected to have fled to Ethiopia. Teff, an ancient grain from the Horn of Africa, has found new enthusiasts in the United States. It's being cultivated in the American West and Midwest, where growers note its appeal as a gluten-free superfood. VOA Tewoldi Tesfagbir reports, and Vincent McCory narrates.
Nevada is known for being the home of Las Vegas, the center of America's gambling industry. But some farmers here are hoping to strike it rich by growing an ancient African grain. More farmers are moving to capitalize on growing demand for gluten-free foods by planting teff, a cereal grass native to the Horn of Africa. Tesfa Dirar grew up helping his parents raise teff in what is now Eritrea. When he came to the United States for university, he missed the staple spongy injera bread that is made from teff.
I brought about 20 pound or 10 kilo of teff seed from Eritrea, and then I planted it in Minnesota, University of Minnesota, where I was studying. That time I give it to different colleges to make a research.
Now his Salem Foods markets the iron-rich grain online with recipes for injera and a history of teff, one of the oldest domesticated plants. Down the road at Desert Oasis Teff and Grain, John Gito and his son Miles say they're selling teff by truckloads to wholesale customers in California and in 1-pound bags to local consumers.
Nevada, Idaho, Arizona, Southern California, those are all places where teff's grown at, just because I think it mimics the natural climate of Ethiopia, high altitude, high temperature, which teff likes.
At the University of Nevada, Reno, researchers are studying this drought-tolerant grain as a way to help adapt to climate change.
As the western United States is getting drier and drier due to global climate change, we felt that it important to make an investment in some alternative crops.
Bob Dexter used to grow wheat, barley, and alfalfa for horse feed, but has added teff to the land he farms along the Carson River.
The horses love the teff hay. It generally has a sweet flavor for them, and it's particularly good for horses as opposed to alfalfa because it's low in the carbohydrates that will cause horses to have health issues.
Professor Kirschman says teff's versatility adds value for Nevada farmers.
Teff not only provides a high-quality forage for livestock production, but it gives us this very highly nutritious, mineral-rich, and gluten-free grain as an added benefit and for human consumption.
Watching the market for teff expand from the East African diaspora to health-conscious consumers, Tesfa Dirar says the high-fiber superfood has global appeal.
Teff could be used for making cookie, for making pancake, porridge, even the teff itself, the seed, you can boil it and make it hot breakfast cereal. And you can make it for pizza. Now we are working with Pizza Hut to provide them gluten-free teff, so you can make it for pizza.
With great demand for the grain, Dirar is expanding teff cultivation in the states of Kansas, Minnesota, and Texas. For Tewelde Tesfa Gabir in Winnemucca, Nevada, Vincent McCory, VOA News.
A Ugandan filmmaker is making his mark on the world stage and changing the narrative. He's one of 14 filmmakers from 6 countries across the continent picked to create an anthology of short films for Disney. Africa 54's Paul Ndiho has more.
Raymond Malenga, 32 years old, founded his company Creatures Animation Studios in 2015 after studying animation and visual effects in Malaysia. He had an ambitious plan to become the next Tyler Perry and tell the African story.
The narrative in Africa has been, you sit on the news right now and I bet you it's something bad about Africa, you know, right? And they are like these small glimmers where people come up and say, hey, that guy's invented an app, this guy's done this, right? And I think we're contributing to that conversation. So what it means for us as directors and what it means for me is an opportunity to contribute to that conversation, and not only that, to take it further, because the way I view it is that this is just a platform.
His team operates out of a makeshift innovation village built from repurposed shipping containers in the capital, Kampala. The big break came in 2017 when they produced a Kalabanda, Ate My Homework.
Kalabanda Ate My Homework has been our flagship studio project. And after doing a Kalabanda Ate My Homework, we learned a lot of things about production and the limitations of production in Africa. So we have been embarking on a journey since then to develop pipelines. How do we expand? How do we get out there? What mistakes did we make? How do we train more artists? And that's what we've been doing for these past few years. And in the process, that's how I get to also like these other international projects, because they give me so much more exposure as to what we could be doing better over here.
It was showcased at the Cannes Film Festival and won Best Animation Film at the African International Film Festival. That led to the current project Disney's Kizazi Moto, Generation Fire. For Malinga, it's a chance to provide African consumers with characters like themselves.
When you start showing people themselves on screen, right, they can fall in love, they can get angry, they can advocate for change, they can be the hero, they can go to space. You start getting a new breed and crop of kids who start saying, yeah, why can't I go to space too, you know, because I saw the other guy going to space.
Kizazi Moto premieres on Disney Plus later this year. But Malinga says he sees it as a platform for tremendous success. After all, he says, there is no reason why an African studio or individual cannot rise above Disney. And perhaps every dream is valid. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
Thanks, Paul. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our new Facebook page, facebook.com/VOA Africa. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.